Which shoe is better to hoop in? The Nike KD 15 or the Nike LeBron 19? Let's find out. Welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to be taking a closer look at the newest models to release from both Kevin Durant and LeBron James signature lines, just kind of seeing how they compare. The LeBron 20s are right around the corner though, so keep your eye out for that release. I actually did just get them in and I did a review on them, so go ahead and check that out. That dropped a few days ago. But before I get into the performance side of these models, we are going to take a quick look at some of the basic info first. So we are dealing with Nike's two most expensive signature lines here today. The LeBron 19s are all the way up at $200, but I do think that's what his line has been at for a minute now though. Like the 18s were $200, and then I want to say that like the LeBron 20s are going to be $200 too, so they are staying at that same range. The KD 15s, they didn't get a price jump either. They're going to be staying at the same $150 retail price for this year's model. So, a little bit of a price discrepancy here today, but staying with the KD 15s first, this shoe is pretty sweet. Like, I am glad his line went back to being more of a low top look. That is just kind of a personal preference for me. He's been releasing mid top shoes kind of dating back all the way to the KD 12s, but I thought these came out really well. And then they did lose like that Grim Reaper looking strap that kind of ran over the upper on last year's model. I was sad to see that go. You can actually see that on this pink pair right here, but I mean everything else on the shoe looks really clean. Like KD's player logo shows up on the tongue like it does for most models that he releases. And then the Nike swoosh on the upper actually sits on top of this overlay. And so does that reverse swoosh that's on the inner side of the upper. So honestly, I just really love that touch. And then on the heel, you're going to get this cool wavy pattern with this jersey number underneath. And then above that is going to be some easy text on that pull tab. Since KD does go by the nickname Easy Money Sniper, that kind of doubles as his social media handle. So, I mean, no shortage of details on this model. I'm definitely a fan. But now switching it over to look at the LeBron 19s. These are going to be built up a little bit higher than the LeBron 18s, definitely like more than the LeBron 20s, like I was just saying that just dropped a little bit early. But I mean, I bought those and he's like a totally new look to his line on that LeBron 20, but these are going to have a lot of the same things that you've seen on his signature line before. Like you're going to have those exposed like visible air units so you can see through the midsole on the shoe, and then around the ankle is going to be like this little air pocket that sort of wraps around all the way to the back side of the shoe and comes out on the inner side of the shoe as well. And then this piece that the laces actually feed through is all just one big overlay. Like this is like a shoe within a shoe type look and feel, and I'm actually going to break that down a little bit more so here in a second. But I mean, the tongue is really cool too. You're going to get that see-through lion's face with some strive for greatness text right above that. So I mean, I'm going to say not a bad look on either of these shoes, but now let's see how they play on the court. So now getting into more of the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning, I'm just going to go ahead and lay out what each shoe is kind of working with first. So the KD 15 is going to have a full-length Air Zoom strobel unit that is stitched directly to the upper to help cut out unnecessary weight and provide full foot responsiveness. Then along with that is going to be some foam that runs the entire length of the shoe. And that's just meant to kind of add a soft and comfortable sensation just to give you back optimal energy. And that's pretty similar to what the KD 14s were using. But now switching it over to look at the LeBron 19. As always, there are going to be some like juice stuff in this cushioning section for this shoe. Nike retooled the cushioning system that combines a 360-degree visible max air unit with some thick responsive zoom air unit underneath the forefoot. And the max air is kind of there to help dissipate and help with like the impact forces and stuff like that. While the zoom air is more so just meant to help drive you forward down the court. Then on top of all of that, you're going to get some Cushlon foam that just feels really soft, stable, and responsive. And generally speaking, like these are two of the better performing cushioning setups within Nike, like within the signature lines at Nike. I feel like the KD 14 and the LeBron 18, those both felt really comfortable to play in, just looking back to last year's model. And that is going to continue on here. Like for me, picking between these two models based off of like the cushioning alone, it is going to come down to just like how you like your shoes to play. Like the LeBron 19 is going to be a little bit more balanced. Like you don't get an extra boost in the forefoot or anything, but it does, the heel feels really good though. Like you can feel those max air units at work. Plus, I mean, these are going to have some pods like embedded into the tongue and the collar just to provide some lightweight cushioning around the ankle and just like over the top of the foot. And you can definitely feel that on this model. But now looking at the KD 15, like just to come back to it, these are going to be a little bit different. Like that Air Zoom strobel unit feels really bouncy up in the forefoot. You do get some extra spring in there that didn't seem to be there on last year's model or on this LeBron 19. And honestly, I am a fan of that. Plus, like the collar is going to be padded on the KD 15 too. That isn't specific to only the LeBron 19. And then using our durometer to test out like the stiffness of the midsole, I was a little bit surprised to see like the LeBron 19s were reading in that 45 to 49 range. And honestly, that is pretty high compared to some other basketball shoes, especially whenever these had that softer foam in there, because the KD15s were more around the average, measuring in at a 39. So the midsole was reading a little bit softer on the KD15s, but that's just kind of a tool we use to get an idea. That doesn't always determine how the shoe is going to play. But I mean, both of these are going to give you a really soft feel on the court. It kind of just comes down to what you want that feel to, or what you really want that to feel like. If you're more so looking for something top loaded, where you get some more balance, I'd say KD15, but more of a balanced feel is going to come from that LeBron 19 model. For the materials in the support, starting off with the KD15s, Nike did remove the strap from this year's model, or for this year's model. That was one of my favorite pieces on last year's shoe, so that was tough. But I mean, these do get a multi-layered mesh upper that's meant to be lightweight and give you that already broken in feel. So this was designed to give you something breathable that would also help reduce your movements. And there are some pieces on here to specifically help with that. But the one thing that I do want to touch on just for a second is the heel slippage. So I have talked about it a little bit in some of my other videos, and I've seen other people testing them out that have kind of experienced some of that same issue. And I actually did have a little bit of my heel sliding around just in the beginning whenever I was playing with these. And at first I thought that was really weird, because the heel is sort of the like a spot on the shoe that is specifically crafted to support your Achilles tendon. Like, Katie's been dealing with injuries related to that spot, so I mean, these shoes struggling in that area is what kind of really threw me off. But from what I've found, if you really take the time to lace these up tight, that pretty much took away all of my movement. Like, I mean, even with the KD15s losing that strap, you have a midfoot like containment band that's on the inside of the shoe. You can't really see it, but that should start to you should feel that lock in your foot whenever you pull tight on those laces. And then in addition to that, the Nike swoosh on the upper does sit on top of that overlay that just help keep your foot from sliding around or from side to side. You're just moving more than it should. So, I mean, I did have some of those same initial concerns on these, but I haven't had any issues since, especially once I started, lacing those up tighter, just paying closer attention to that. But now switching it over to look at the LeBron 19s, there are a lot of things going on with the materials for this shoe, but now we can kind of come back to where I mentioned this in the appearance section. But these do have a full inner sleeve that kind of conforms to your foot just to give you a snug and secure feel. And then you have a thin transparent exterior layer that's highly durable and supposed to be lightweight to reduce your in-shoe movement. And then to go along with that is going to be some flywire cables that kind of work through the laces feed through that just to provide some more support. And just as you tighten them, you should feel that really at work. So LeBron 18s, they use some type of lintel weave upper, I think is what they used on last year's model. And the materials, they felt cool. The support just wasn't the greatest. I think it is pretty clear that Nike went out of their way to throw on a bunch more support features to this shoe than what we saw on last year's model. And like I said, the laces feed through that giant overlay that just gives you a more secure feel. Not to mention they even added a small outrigger to give you a wider base, just to kind of help with your balance too. And this is just a higher shoe in general, so your ankle is going to feel a little bit more stable and just more secure. And this is a spot where I think the LeBron 18 made some major improvements, especially for the support, but all of that is going to come with a cost, and the cost of that is going to be the weight. The LeBron 19 is actually the heaviest shoe that I've played in, weighing 594 grams for a size 10.5. That's just not ideal. The KD15s are down a ways from that, weighing 424 grams for the same size. So you got a pretty noticeable weight difference there. And this is definitely one of those times where you can kind of feel that on the court too. So I do love the cushioning and the materials and all the support features that come with the LeBron 19s, but they did end up making the shoe pretty heavy to play in. I'm not a huge fan of that. To finish off with traction, we do have a whole new setup for both of these shoes. The KD15 has some grooves and some ridges in the sole to help provide multi-directional traction. It's not really as organized as the ovals and the lines were from last year's model. And then the LeBron 19 traction pattern is actually inspired by that LeBron crown logo being condensed down into this micro-engineered blade pattern on top of a rubber outsole that is meant to, of course, also give you multi-directional traction. But this has probably been one of the weaker points to LeBron's shoe line ever since I've been testing them out. The LeBron 18s didn't have a whole lot of bite, and I want to say the 19s feel a little bit better. Definitely not by a lot. And honestly, I almost feel like his budget-friendly line, like the LeBron Witness line, honestly has been a little bit stickier than his signature line for some reason. So I am hoping that gets sorted out. But as for the KDs, I mean, his signature line has been pretty solid over the last few years for traction. The KD 13s were good. I really liked what the KD 14s were doing, and the KD 15s keep it rolling right here. And like I said, I mean, this isn't put together in the same way for the pattern, just not quite in order as much, but still they give you a really consistent feel on the court. I want to say these almost have a little bit more bite than last year's model, just a little bit stickier. And then as for outdoor use, I do feel like the grooves are a little bit deeper on the KD15s compared to the LeBron 19. Plus, not a lot of people opt to just use a $200 shoe for outdoor purpose. But as far as sizing goes, both of these shoes do feel like they are a little bit on the narrow side. That's kind of typical for KDs, but it feels like this year's LeBron model squeezes your foot a little bit more than usual. So for the final ratings and starting off with the appearance, the LeBron 19s are nice. It's just a little bit too much going on in my opinion. I typically prefer playing in like lower to mid-top models, so I am going to go with the KD 15, just lean that way for the appearance. But as for the cushioning, I mean, like I said, both of these models do provide a really soft and comfortable feel, just kind of in different ways. Like, it's a little bit more spring on the KD 15s in the front, and a little bit more padding in the heel for the LeBron 19s. So it's just kind of what you prefer, but I'm going to keep that section as a tie. As for the materials, both of these models do feel pretty quality. I would be kind of tempted to lean towards the LeBron 19 just because they are the more expensive shoe, and they have plenty of nice materials, but almost too many, which is part of what makes them a heavier shoe. So I'm just going to keep it as a tie for this section. Then as for the support, the KD 15 does have a little bit of heel slippage, but lacing them up tight does pretty much eliminate all of that. But I mean, the LeBron 19s, they did add a ton of support features for this shoe, from like the outrigger to the overlay to the transparent fly wire cable, like just a lot more supportive in general. So I'm gonna go with the LeBron 19s here. And then to finish off with traction, the KD 15 is going to be noticeably better in that section. Like, that's probably the area that needs the most work from LeBron's line over the last few years. But as for the better shoe to hoop in, I am going to go with the Nike KD 15. And this is really close for the most part. Like, both shoes have some quality materials, really soft for the cushioning, but the KD 15, with it being like significantly cheaper and offering better traction, that is kind of what makes me lean that way overall for the performance. But I mean, if the LeBron line gets its traction to a better spot, as well as like bringing the weight down a little bit, that will change going forward. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. Feel free to drop a follow or subscribe if you like this video. And if you're interested in buying the Nike KD 15 and you want to support our channel, just click the link that we have here on screen, or we have links for both shoes down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon Shoewear. Peace.